Dixon will be off the training track for a couple of weeks after undergoing minor knee surgery. The Powers high-performance manager Darren Burgess says he could be available for the start of the season.
He'll probably have a week and a half, 2 weeks off legs, but then he'll be running and training after about 3 weeks, and then it's a matter of judgment as to when he plays, either during the NAB or round one.
Now the 5AA forecast, staying cloudy overnight, sunny and 26 today. Tomorrow, sunny and 30, sunny over the weekend with tops of 34 on Saturday and Sunday, staying fine for Monday and Tuesday then with temperatures in the low to mid-30s. More news as it happens on 5AA.
1395, Adelaide's 5AA. This is Peter Godfrey.
And a very good morning, 6 minutes past 5. Temperature 16 degrees, hasn't budged all night. A bit like yesterday, didn't move, although we were a whole degree warmer this time yesterday. Let's see what's happening across the ditch in New Zealand. Selwyn Manning joins us, editor of Evening Report. Selwyn, how's your side of the ditch?
Yeah, it's a pretty happy one up here in Auckland, Peter. Certainly, we can talk about the cricket later if you like.
If we have to.
It was party time in Auckland yesterday, last night after that early end to the one-day international against you guys. But the weather, that's sitting probably about the same as you guys today, I think. You guys are heading for a high of about 26.
Mm-hmm, yep.
So that's what Auckland is doing. Partly cloudy, a lot of cloud moving in from the north, so probably bringing with it the Pacific humidity as well. So,
yeah.
But, can't complain. It's this, midsummer kind of feeling around the place.
Yeah. Well, we're getting back into that. We've been sort of a bit wintry earlier in the week, and we had some major rain as well, with a bit of flooding in a number of areas too. So
that'll be welcomed in some parts.
Well, it's welcome in some parts, yeah, but not in others. Yeah, you just can't pick it. On to things happening your side of the ditch. The TPP. Now you got. Is it today the signing of that document?
Yes, it is this afternoon.
This afternoon. A lot of people not happy about it, and protests around. I was interested to see one rather unique protest. I thought was rather interesting in Raglan. Now, where's Raglan in New Zealand? First of all, where's Raglan?
Yeah. If you look at Auckland on the map and you head south toward Hamilton, that takes about an hour and a quarter's drive, I guess, to that Waikato farming city.
Yeah.
And then you head west to the west coast, and there's a beach out there and a very strong community called where Raglan is. Raglan's known for its alternative lifestyles and a different way of looking at things, Peter,
okay.
and certainly did on this one that you're raising, I think.
Yeah, so they're protesting at the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, and they did that by a whole lot of people on a bridge jumping into the water, a chain bomb as they referred to it as. Interesting way to make a political statement.
It is, and as I understand it, it was one way of getting young people involved in having a political voice, As they said, they wanted to make a splash, and so they thought, well, we're at Raglan, why not make it literally as well? But I think a lot of the feeling, you see it in different schools. It's not necessarily having politics ram down young people's throat, but there's this encouragement for all people to realise they do have a political voice, that they can express it. If they agree with something or they disagree with something, then there is a way of being able to interact with the powers that be, and certainly with others in the country that may see things in the same way. But so that Raglan stood out as one of those most innovative in the way of getting noticed. Raglan's off the main track, if you like I described there. It's a West Coast community, certainly an alternative. One's got a fantastic local radio, Peter. One that has been around for years, and it has some of the best debates, actually, and the most informed often in the country. It's a fantastic little place. But,
okay.
So that protest certainly stood out. Now, there is a major push by the authorities here in New Zealand to secure all of the roads around Sky City, which is right in the heart of Auckland CBD there. Then there's a casino. Now, that is the location of where the representatives of the TPP nations will be meeting today, and certainly New Zealand's hosting of it to sign the Trans-Pacific Partnership as an agreement. Now, like we mentioned last week, Peter, that once that is signed, then each country takes that signed agreement back to its legislature and puts it before its parliament or whatever type of constitutional representation it has for ratification. So it requires a majority there under each respective country's constitutions. So this is at the stage of where it is to get it signed, saying basically all the negotiators and the representatives of the country, the governments of all those countries in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, they agree that this is the one they'll take back home.
Okay.
So that's where it is at the moment. Now, the protest movement has been certainly engaging in all sorts of areas, and those who are those who have been constantly informing the country of the detail and the text, meaning the facts of what has been negotiated, mainly due to leaked documents coming out of the negotiating teams around the world themselves. People like Jane Kelsey here, Professor Jane Kelsey, who is an expert in such things and is a lecturer in law at Auckland University. Now, without Jane Kelsey here in New Zealand, most New Zealanders wouldn't even know what was in the TPP, and certainly the protest movement has been relying on Jane Kelsey's information and to inform its own people and its activists, etc. Now, the sensitivities are there. Obviously, the government and the police do not want interference. They don't want to see a political embarrassment, particularly with the other countries here. There's understanding, Peter, that the police have been having special training in riot control, protest control, activism control of all sorts and types. There is a major protest march that is organised for just after midday that will go down the main road in Auckland CBD, which is Queen Street. And that one is one where people who have any concerns have been invited to take part in. Concerns that is relating to the TPP and its consequences, and is expected to be reasonably friendly and one of reasonable size. So it's hard to always gauge these things, but the expectation is that it'll be in the thousands of people that are marching there. And then there's another more shadowy group that has been arguing that it has the right to disrupt and direct action is expected, and I think that's the one that the police are focusing on mainly, and the activist community doesn't know an awful lot about that. So Auckland's expecting, from the point of view of last night, and it was party time because of the cricket, today it's serious, and it's expected to be quite staunch and quite a clash between the authorities and those who are attempting to voice their right to protest.
Okay. Well, I wonder whether the jumping off the bridge in the past few days, whether that's enough to send a message so that people don't get too out of hand today. Let's hope so.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, very good. Raglan has got a message there, and just on that point, there have been many sane and proper voices coming from the activist community themselves. Those wise heads saying, "Look, we're here to voice a view, and it's our view, and to preserve our right to do this. Anything beyond that is folly and falling into the other side's hands." That's what the activist community is putting amongst its own people. So there's clashes of ideas there too. And it seems like there are many different factions that are trying to express themselves on this one, Peter. It also leads into, of course, it's almost like this time of year is characterised by the Treaty of Waitangi. And have we got time to talk about that?
We can move on to that. Your National Day, that's this weekend, isn't it? Saturday?
Yes, that's right, Saturday, February 6th. Now, it's a kind of like your Australia Day, Peter. It commemorates the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi in 1840, and that signing of that treaty was between the British Crown, Queen Victoria at that time, and Maori in New Zealand. It's been a foundation document, and it's been commemorated every year since. Now, it's also become a day where issues impacting on New Zealand are debated, and the grievances between Maori and the Crown are often highlighted, often in a fairly aggressive way as well, between both and on this particular day. Now, this year, the Prime Minister John Key, originally earlier in the week, was told by Ngāpuhi Iwi, which is the tribe in the Northland where Waitangi is held, the place of Waitangi, that he was told that he was not welcome on Titi Marae, which is a kind of sacred ground. It's what it's referred to often as the Lower Marae, which is where a lot of the debate occurs. Now, what happens is the formalities on the Upper Marae, where the actual signing of the treaty was taking place, on the grounds at Waitangi, and some people who have visited the Bay of Islands might know that, Peter, that area, and there's a meeting house, and there's a flag staff, and there's this huge waka or Maori war canoe that is up there, and that's all been preserved, and it's a fantastic place to visit. But anyway, so John Key was told by Ngāpuhi that he was not welcome up there, which caused the government and John Key itself to actually rethink whether or not he should go up there for his own safety and the safety of others as well. Now, and the next day, others in Ngāpuhi said no. The Prime Minister has always been invited to the marae up here for Waitangi Day. It is a part of tradition, and we will insist that tradition is maintained. So it's back to John Key as to whether or not he believes he should. So the last word on that is that John Key is saying, yes, he will go up to Waitangi. His intention is to go to the formalities at the Upper Marae, at the signing, the location of where the treaty was signed. But he reserves the right not to attend the Lower Marae at Titi Marae, where the debates around the issues of the day, including the TPP, Peter, are expected to be forthright. Let's put it that way. Now, where John Key is getting his advice is whether or not both police and marae officials will be able to contain the anger that has been building up towards John Key from within Maori, because John Key and his government excluded Maori from being consulted over the TPP. That expectation and that demand is that they ought to be consulted on such things, particularly where there are issues relating to sovereignty that may be eroded due to the signing of TPP.
Okay. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Being your National Day, how else? What sort of things do Kiwis do to mark the day? Is it a day where you beach cricket and barbecues like we do here for our National Day, or what happens?
Yeah, quite often, Peter. Waitangi Day this year falls on a Saturday, but the Monday is a public holiday, so to commemorate that. And so, yes, very much a family thing. In all towns, villages and cities, locations around the country, there is commemorations as well. In Manukau in particular, it's just Manukau used to be its own city, but it's a part of the greater Auckland city now. And it used to have, and still does have, a very vibrant one where it celebrates all cultures. So it's I guess the observations of the Treaty of Waitangi come down into two things. Yes, celebrating what we think is great in the country, but also trying to raise those issues that need to be addressed that could make the country even better. And also from the point of view of the treaty, actually acknowledges a bicultural country, meaning one people's. One nation, two peoples, meaning Maori and everybody else. And so the everybody else is often expressed extremely forthrightly and flamboyantly throughout the country, with all cultures kind of celebrating that place where they want to live.
Okay. And what are your plans for the day? Have you got anything planned?
Yeah, I'll probably go out to Okahu Bay, which is in Auckland, and there's often kind of commemorations there with people coming in. On canoe, waka, as you say, and it's right close to Ngāti Whātua Marae, out near Bastion Point in Auckland there, and it's really in the heart of that kind of thing. And so, we'd like to try and go out there and also catch up, the opportunity of catching up with family, like you say, barbecue and that kind of thing. But once again, it is a day. Where, in all seriousness, it's to celebrate the good things in the country, but also to acknowledge and debate those things that could make it better. I think that's the special thing. And I guess, like Australia Day, you guys have had a similar thing, haven't you?
Yeah, indeed.
In that way.
Indeed. So we'll just have a quick break, but we got the cricket to talk about too, so we'll do that in a moment. We'll be right back with you. Selwyn Manning with us. He's editor of eveningreport.nz, New Zealand's independent interactive debate.
Michael Keelan's Weekend.
Sid, good morning to you. I think you wanted.
Yes. How many chooks you got, Sid?
No, that's an alarm thing that goes off.
Hey, Sid, can you do us a favour?
Yeah.
Can you turn the thing off?
Michael Keelan's Weekend.
That should be better.
Weekends from 6 a.m. on 1395, Adelaide's 5AA.
Are you sick of excess fluid making you look and feel fat? Water retention can be responsible for extra weight on the scales and swollen limbs. Fortunately, Frank Caruso has created his triple herbal action Fluid Away just for you. Frank's so passionate about helping you, he stands behind Caruso's Fluid Away with a money-back guarantee.
It's the way we make it that makes all the difference.
Caruso's Fluid Away from leading health stores and pharmacies. Always read the label. Use only as directed. If symptoms persist, see your healthcare professional.
The Glenelg Club just keeps getting better. Same for Sundays. Every Sunday, the Glenelg Club has Sundays. $7 pizzas, $5 beer, wine and bubbles, and live music from 4 to 8. It's also a great place to enjoy a meal or catch up for a coffee while the kids run around Glenelg's biggest backyard. So come and see what's possible at Sundays. Every Sunday at the Glenelg Club, Gliderol Stadium, Glenelg.
Want something new? Go to auctionblue.com.au. Auction Blue are located right here in Adelaide. The range of products is massive. Timber and other building products, deceased estate and wine auctions. Plus, they have a huge range of brand new white goods and homemaker products. Fridges, washing machines, microwaves, flooring and furniture. All at ridiculous prices. For everything old and new, auctionblue.com.au. Hop online or visit them at 15 Kingston Avenue, Richmond. auctionblue.com.au.
Why is Feb the best time to travel by air? Because airport security parking is cheaper than a taxi fare to the airport, with up to 50% off parking for the entire month of Feb. If you're flying, make sure you're parking at airport security parking and save.
Peter Godfrey on 1395, Adelaide's 5AA.
And Selwyn Manning with us, editor of eveningreport.nz. Selwyn, the cricket we must get onto, the One Day International, Australia over there at the moment. Not a good day for the Aussies at Eden Park. Terrible day, in fact.
Yeah, no, it certainly was a surprise for Kiwis too. I mean, New Zealand Black Caps team has had a glorious summer, Peter, and facing off Sri Lanka and certainly with Pakistan as well. Only its last game with Pakistan, of which New Zealand won, was on the weekend on the 31st of January. So it was a really quick preparation for the wicket for Australia at the same field at Eden Park in Auckland here. And you know, Australia, you guys won the toss, put us into bat, and with the early loss of Kane Williamson, one of our key batter, the informed batter, he was out for a duck, the first time in what they say 900 and something or other days since he was last out for a day. So, obviously, what's that work out about 3 years ago?
3 years or something,
out for a duck. So that caused New Zealanders to absolutely think, oh my goodness, what's going to happen here? The Australians are on fire. But Martin Guptill, he nailed down another one of our key batters. He nailed down. Brendan McCullum got a really high strike rate for just over the 40, and away they went, and Guptill was in for the 90s. But a lot of you listeners probably know all of those kind of things. I guess over here, Peter, is we celebrate those wins against your cricket team, like I guess some of the other teams around the world celebrate their wins when it happens against the All Blacks in rugby. It's kind of that kind of thing. We know that, okay, we've bruised your chin in this cricket game, but there's another game on the weekend, Peter, and on the February the 6th, that's down in Wellington, and we know you guys won't have taken this particular loss lightly, and you're likely to come back and show us whether or not you've got that spine that you're world famous for.
Yeah, I did. You got rain predicted for Saturday there?
Yeah, no doubt. Wellington, it blows like a hurricane there all the time, Peter. So it can change not just 4 seasons in one day, but it can do that times 4 if you like.
Back again. Deal with that before lunch. Because in the paper here this morning, it mentions that rain predicted for Wellington on Saturday, meaning Australia may have already lost the chance to bring home the trophy.
Well, let's see. Over here, we kind of scratch our heads a little bit. It's a fantastic win. You know, it's not very often any team, let alone us in New Zealand, get to see a score where it's 307 for 8 after the 50 overs for the Black Caps. The New Zealanders there, and Australia 148 all out after 24.2 overs. I mean, that just doesn't happen. So yesterday...
It did. Yeah.
Yesterday was, like we said earlier in the bulletin, Peter, it was party time in the city, that's for sure. And there was one thing, though, that came through in the Herald reports. David Leggett, who he's a cricket writer, sports writer there, and he was saying that he was appalled at the crowd, the Auckland crowd, absolutely targeting your David Warner. Outspoken, obviously. He's world known for his outspokenness. And David Leggett, he says here that personal abuse seemed to accompany the stocky Sydney sider as he travelled anywhere in the globe. But yesterday's salvos directed his way from a particularly boisterous section of Eden Park crowd were unlikely to have rattled the Australian opener. But he goes on that it was actually worse, that there was chanting of the F word just went whenever Warner got near anything, and went on and on and on to the point of being embarrassing and also awful. So, there's some criticisms of the Auckland crowd getting a little bit too carried away there, but Eden Park has always been a cauldron, irrespective of what sport has been played on the grounds at any particular time. And I guess it goes with the territory, doesn't it?
Indeed it does. Well, we'll see how that all pans out. So, and thanks for joining us this morning. We'll catch you again next week. Have yourself a happy Waitangi Day. I guess is that the way you would greet it? Yeah. Enjoy the day, and we'll catch you next week, Selwyn.
Okay, Peter.
All the best, mate. Bye-bye. Selwyn Manning, editor of eveningreport.nz. 27 minutes past 5. Anne Stone coming up in a moment with all the latest news, sport and weather. Dave and Will for breakfast at 6. And between the news and breakfast, your calls here at 5AA.
Hi, it's David and Will here. Coles is rewarding locals who help make SA a little